I had my first panic attack on the 14th of September 2022, standing in my own kitchen at 7:30 in the morning because I heard a car slow down on the lane outside and I no longer knew whether it was going to stop. I need to tell you about the evidence that was found 4 days before my court hearing. I need to tell you what it revealed about who my landlord actually was and the structure behind the campaign that had been running against me for 8 months. I am going to make you wait for it because that is what I had to do. But I promise you that when I get there, it will change the shape of everything that came before. My name is not important. I am 68 years old, a retired civil engineer from Herefordshire, and in January 2022, I was living in a stone farmhouse on the edge of a small village about 4 miles outside Leominster. I had lived there for 11 years. My tenancy was assured short hold, renewed annually, and my rent was £740 a month, which I paid by standing order on the 1st of every month without a single missed payment in 11 years. The property had been managed for most of that time by a local letting agency, the kind of small operation run by one person who knows every property and every tenant and whose name you see on signs throughout the county. Then the property changed hands. I received a letter in December 2021 informing me that the property had been sold to a new owner and that a new management company would be taking over from the 1st of January 2022. The letter gave a company name and an email address, no phone number, no named individual. I wrote back asking for confirmation of the new arrangements and received a reply from a woman called Sandra, who described herself as the managing agent. Sandra was professional and efficient in her emails. She was also the only human being I would interact with for the next 8 months, because the owner, who I was told was called Robert, was abroad and unavailable for direct contact. The first inspection was in February 2022. Routine, Sandra said. Standard check for a new management company taking on an established tenancy. I agreed and let her in. She spent 45 minutes going through the property with a checklist. She noted 11 items requiring attention, most of them minor wear and tear, and said she would arrange for contractors to visit. The contractors visited the following week. They fixed 2 of the 11 items and left without explanation. The second inspection was in March, 3 weeks after the first. Sandra said it was a follow-up on the outstanding maintenance items. I let her in again. The same checklist, a different set of notes, the same 2 contractors the following week who again fixed a minor item and left. Let me ask you something directly, and I want you to think about this carefully before I continue. When does routine become something else? When does a landlord's right to inspect a property become something you start to dread? I am asking because by April 2022, I'd been inspected 4 times in 10 weeks, and I was starting to feel something in my chest when I heard a car on the lane outside, a tightening that I told myself was nothing, and that my GP would later describe as the early presentation of an anxiety disorder. When does frequency become intent? When does intent become a campaign? Those are the questions my solicitor would eventually answer. But in April 2022, I had not yet asked them. The inspections continued through May and June. By July, I'd received 11 visits from Sandra or her contractors in 6 months. I had received 4 formal letters citing minor concerns about the condition of the property. The concerns were vague, always just specific enough to require a response, but never serious enough to constitute a genuine complaint. In June, I received a letter suggesting that my tenancy agreement required review and that Robert was considering changes to the terms. In July, I received a notice of a rent increase from £740 to £1,060 per month, effective from the 1st of October, a 43%. A 43% rent increase on a property I had lived in for 11 years, with no structural improvement, no renovation, no change in the terms of service. A letter from Sandra explaining that the increase reflected the current market rate for rural properties in Herefordshire, and that Robert hoped I would understand. I did not understand. I contacted Citizens Advice on the 19th of July. The advisor I spoke to, a man called David, told me that the rent increase required a Section 13 notice served with at least 1 month's notice before the start of a new tenancy period, that it could be challenged at a first-tier tribunal if I believed it was above the market rate, and that the pattern of inspections I described was worth documenting formally. He used a phrase that I wrote down in my notebook immediately. He said, "What you are describing could constitute harassment under the Protection from Eviction Act 1977. I had not used that word before. Harassment. I said it out loud on the drive home, and something settled in me. Not relief, recognition. I instructed a solicitor named Helen on the 22nd of July, 2022. Helen had 14 years of housing law experience and the particular quality of someone who is impossible to rattle. She listened to everything I told her, and then she asked me whether I had kept records of every inspection and every communication. I had. 11 years of careful habits do not leave you just because you are frightened." Helen wrote to Sandra on the 28th of July, formally notifying her that the pattern of inspections and the rent increase were being reviewed for potential breach of the tenant's right to quiet enjoyment under Section 1 of the Protection from Eviction Act 1977, and that any further uninvited contact should be directed to her office. She also challenged the rent increase and filed a referral to the first-tier tribunal. The inspection stopped. The rent increase was withdrawn. Sandra's emails became formal and infrequent. For 6 weeks in August and September, I had something approaching peace, and in that peace, I started to understand how badly the preceding 8 months had affected me. The panic attack in my kitchen on the 14th of September was not the first symptom, but it was the clearest one. I sat on the kitchen floor, the stone tiles cold through my trousers in the way that stone floors are cold even in September, and I counted my breaths, and I thought about 11 years of this house and what it had meant to me and what had been done to it and to me, and I was quietly and completely furious. I saw my GP on the 16th of September. She diagnosed generalized anxiety disorder and noted in her records that the cause appeared to be sustained stress related to a housing situation. She prescribed medication. She also wrote a letter at my request documenting the timeline of my symptoms in relation to the tenancy events, a letter that would later become important. In October 2022, Robert issued a Section 21 notice seeking possession of the property. He wanted me out. Helen challenged the Section 21 on procedural grounds. The notice was defective because the deposit, which I had paid in 2011, had never been registered with a government-approved deposit protection scheme. 11 years of tenancy, and the deposit had sat unprotected in someone's account the entire time, which under the Housing Act 2004 meant the Section 21 could not validly be served. Robert's legal team served a corrected notice in November, but the window for service had been missed and the challenge held. We counterclaimed for harassment under the 1977 Act, damages for the impact on my mental health, and compensation for the unprotected deposit. The hearing was listed for the county court in January 2023, and then 4 days before the hearing, Helen received a document. This is what I withheld until now. Helen had submitted a land registry search as part of the standard preparation for the hearing. The search returned the current registered owner of the property. The name on the register was not Robert. The name on the register was Sandra. Sandra, the managing agent. Sandra, who had conducted 11 inspections. Sandra, who had sent the letters and arranged the contractors and delivered the rent increase notice. Sandra was not the agent. Sandra was the owner. She had been the owner since the date of the December 2021 sale. Robert had never existed, or if he existed, he had no connection to this property. The entire structure, the absent landlord, the unreachable principal, the professional distance between the person instructing and the person executing had been constructed to obscure the fact that the person doing the inspecting, the harassing, the pressuring was the same person who owned the building and stood to profit from the vacant possession. Helen applied for an emergency amendment to the claim to add Sandra personally as the primary respondent. The application was granted. I want to give Sandra something here because I've sat with this for a long time. Sandra had bought a rural property in Herefordshire with the intention, I believe, of selling it vacant for a significantly higher price than she had paid with a sitting tenant in residence. The gap between a tenanted sale and a vacant sale in the Herefordshire market in 2022 was substantial, likely £60,000 or more. She had looked at the numbers and constructed a methodology. It was deliberate and it was systematic, and it was also, in some specific practical sense, the decision of someone who had done the sums and could not see past them to the person on the other side of the equation. That is not an excuse. It is a human failure, I think I understand, even as I cannot forgive it. The January hearing proceeded with Sandra as the primary respondent. The court found in my favour on the harassment claim, awarded damages of £14,300, including the deposit compensation and the mental health element, supported by my GP's letter, and dismissed the Section 21 on the procedural grounds. But Sandra appealed. She appealed on the grounds that the amendment to the claim naming her as respondent had been procedurally irregular, and that the harassment finding had applied too broad an interpretation of the 1977 Act. The appeal was lodged in February 2023. Helen filed our response in March. The appeal hearing is listed. I am still in the farmhouse. I have been here for 12 years now. On quiet mornings, when no cars slow down on the lane outside, I can sit in the kitchen with a mug of tea and look out at the fields and remember what this place felt like before all of this started. I can almost get back to it. On other mornings, the tightening in my chest is still there. The appeal is pending. Sandra's grounds are narrow, but they are not nothing. Helen believes we will hold the finding. I believe her because I have to believe her. But I also know that the outcome is not certain, and that uncertainty has its own particular weight when you are 68 and you have been carrying this for 18 months. Part 2 will cover the appeal hearing, what Sandra's legal team argued when they finally had to explain the land registry discrepancy in an appellate court, and what the judge said about the structure of the arrangement when she had the full picture in front of her. If you want to know what happens next, subscribe now. Because what came out in that appeal, hearing about who Sandra actually was and what she had done before this property, is something I was not expecting, and neither will you be.